All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is by far probably the topic I speak about the most. Every time I speak to new agency owners, almost all the time, if they're struggling with their agency, they're making the same mistake over and over and over with their outreach. And if they just fix this one little problem, they'd get way better results with their cold email, their cold loom, whatever outreach they're doing. What I'm about to show you in this video literally should be the answer to exactly how to make outreach work for you, regardless of whether it's cold call, cold email, doesn't matter, because it's not a simple hack or, little tick. It's a method, right? A mental model you can carry forward as you do outreach. So what I'm going to do is I've got a bunch of notes. I actually have a real life example of this as well to run you through. And I also have a template for you to literally just plug and play into whatever you're doing now. So this will be incredibly advantageous for you to do moving forward. And I'm really excited to see the comments, months from now from people who watch this actually apply it, get incredible results, and then just come back and leave a comment on this video saying, hey, I did this, now I achieved this. And that's what I live for. That's why I make these videos. If you're new to the channel, my name's Courtne. I've built and run 2 agencies, one of which I previously sold, and now I'm building a new one. And I also run a education company for agency owners, specifically where we help with systems, right? Which is what I'm about to show you here. But again, I'll only talk about it at the end, so nothing to sell you, and let's just get into it. All right, so as I said, this is actually quite an important video because this is literally the number one problem I see over and over and over again. So, I wanted to take the time to actually put some notes down, collect my thoughts so that I can articulate myself properly, and also kind of reference people that are, a lot further ahead in business than me. Today, we're going to be talking about Charlie Munger. If you don't know who he is, he's got an incredible book, but he is Warren Buffett's business partner. So, he's a billionaire. So he's got a thing or two to teach us. And as I said, I put together these notes as well as a template I promised you because I wanted to get this point across well. And, I wanted to make sure that this is impactful. Okay. So today we are answering the question, why can I not get my outreach to work? And again, like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's email, cold call, literally it doesn't matter. What I'm about to show you today can apply to all of that and it can literally solve all of those problems. Okay, so let's start with what I call the 3 sins of outreach. So if you're doing any of these 3 things, you are basically setting yourself up to fail, right? So the first thing is, before we even get into the mental models and what I'm about to show you, that template I showed you, is just make sure that you're not doing these 3 things, okay? And what you need to really do is look yourself in the mirror and question yourself. Am I doing this? Am I guilty of this? Because if so, that's something that I can fix immediately, which will, exponentially help with my results. Right, so the first thing is, just doing a lot of random shit, right? And this ultimately comes down to shiny object syndrome. So, this gets passed around the internet a lot. If you have ever watched any videos on agencies or if you're in any programs, you probably heard of this shiny object syndrome before. But it is a rife problem, especially in our industry with agencies. I've helped, easily over 100 agencies this year alone scale to 10, 20K per month and more. And almost all the time, in order to get to that, they first have to overcome this problem, right? Which is shiny object syndrome, which just leads you to doing random shit. So if you look at yourself objectively and ask yourself, are you just focusing on one active and one passive form of outreach? I made a video on that before. Or are you doing everything, right? You are doing cold calling for 3 days and then you jump on YouTube and someone says, this email template is the absolute best template ever and we can make 7 figures if we just do this. And now you just throw away everything you're doing and suddenly you start doing emails, right? And then, someone says, oh no, that's dead. There's this new fancy software that does this and that. And now you throw everything away and you just get caught in this perpetual loop of trying, failing, and you never put your 10,000 hours into anything and then nothing ever works, right? That's basically just shiny object, jumping from one to the other without getting anything to work. And this is, outreach, the people that you learn from on YouTube, like everything. Okay, so that just question if you are doing this, the grass is not always greener on the other side, and just stick to one thing until you have proven that you cannot get it to work. And that's what I'm about to give you is a way to prove an outreach method is working for you or not. Because a lot of people also have realized just operate off of gut feeling. It's like, this outreach method is not working or this is working. And they really have no process to actually answer that question. But the good news is that's what I'm about to teach you today. Okay, now the next thing is another thing that I learned, and I've learned this lesson many times in my life. It's kind of come up multiple times as I've approached, burnout. And yeah, it just seems to be one of those lessons that you just get retaught to you over and over and over through life experiences until eventually it gets ingrained in your head. But hopefully able to cut that time frame down for you by just giving it to you in this video, which is a lot of people set goals, right? Everyone knows that to succeed at anything, you have to have a goal. But the way that people go wrong here is they set goals that are very arbitrary and based on things outside of their control. So they say, this month I want to land 2 clients, or this month I want to land 3 clients. But what happens when you do that is there's a lot of factors that play into landing those clients. Did the potential prospect wake up on the right side of the bed today? What is market sentiment? Are we in a recession? Are we not? Even seasonality, like for example, I'm recording this on the 8th of December. Everyone knows December is not a good month to land clients because most people are on holiday. Most people's budgets for their companies have kind of collapsed or come to a halt. So it's just not a good time to land clients, right? So if you were to spin up a new outreach system on the 25th of December on Christmas Day and wonder why it's not working, well, obviously you might be doing something wrong, but part of it is you're just, operating in an environment which doesn't allow you to succeed, right? So how do we overcome these issues? Well, we set goals based on actions, not outcomes. And what happens here is you inevitably avoid losing motivation. Because if I set the goal of attaining 3 clients or 2 clients this month and it doesn't happen, what happens? Well, you get demotivated. And if enough of that demotivation hits you, eventually you lose motivation completely and then you stop. And one of the biggest secrets, like I can just tell you from, looking at hundreds of agencies, including my own, the biggest secret to making this stuff work is just doing it day in and day out and day in and day out and just, putting in your 10,000 hours and just getting really good at something, right? That's honestly just what it comes down to. But getting good at something requires doing it for a long enough amount of time, which requires, having some motivation. So set action-based goals, such as, I want to send 10 emails a day. 20 emails a day. I want to do 10 cold calls. I want to send 10 messages. I want to create 1 YouTube video a day. It doesn't really matter what method you're using. That's, we spoke about that in other videos. It's just set an action, because when it's an action goal, you are in control of it, right? The only thing that could prevent you from hitting that goal is if you just didn't do the work. So again, it's all on you. It's got nothing to do with the market, the environment, anything like that, right? And finally, what this ultimately comes down to, and again, what I want to say here is, sorry, I just made a typo. It's the production quality you get. But the third thing that I wanted to give you is just to operate off of this simple rule, right? Which is, 0.001% time and this quote. Okay, so let's explain this a little bit. Every day, you should wake up with the objective to become 0.001% better at whatever your craft is in a current moment. So that could be cold email. It could be cold messenger. It could be cold calling. It doesn't really matter. Again, this is a mental model you can apply to outreach as a whole. So all you need to do is just every day get 0.001% better. And again, this is not like something weird or random. Oh, I feel like I got better today. No, it needs to be a method that you can actually track. So like, how do you track that you're getting better? That's where this sheet comes into play, which I'll talk about in a second. But you have to be able to track that you're getting better. And all you should be doing is trying to get that little percentage better each day. And then all you have to do is allow enough time to elapse to the point where you become deserving of multiple clients each month. And then you will get rewarded by the market with those clients. This is a very, very simple model. When I realized this, it really changed the way that I look at outreach, because suddenly it was less pressurizing. It wasn't this big thing of I need to get 2 clients. It was simply just, no, all I need to do is get 0.001% better on a daily basis and just allow time to move forward with me doing this consistently enough to the point where I actually deserve those 3 clients a month. And then the universe will reward it to me, right? Because I am no longer trying to get it. I actually just deserve it. And, this is where Charlie Munger comes in. He basically summarized what I just said with a very poetic quote. And I'm sure you've heard this many times before. But he said, to get what you want, which would be those 2 or 3 clients a month, whatever your goal is, you have to deserve what you want, right? And the only way to deserve what you want is to consistently track yourself progressing to the point where you deserve it. And the world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. But this is what I see with outreach, right? Is people expect to hit this massive goal of X amount of clients, but they don't actually deserve it. Like, they have no proof of results or anything like that to actually deserve it, right? And you can never fail at outreach. It's just a question of how quickly you can iterate through problems, right? Now, this comes down to this sheet that I'm going to show you. So I obviously have a program where I help agency owners really scale from like 0 to 20K as quickly as possible. And in that program, I talk about the secret that I discovered when doing outreach, which is really not a secret because it was discovered in like, I think the dark ages, like a very long time ago, which is basically scientific method. Now, one of the students, Wahab, he did an incredible job of basically going through my training and creating a spreadsheet, for the other members to use, which I thought was really, really good of him. So, shout out to Wahab. He's a G. He did an incredible job here. Here's his post. He also recorded a Loom breaking it down. And I know everyone really, really enjoyed it. But today I'm going to actually go through this process with you. I'm actually going to use his spreadsheet and explain what it means. Okay, so what we are basically trying to do here, before I get into this, is just explain what's happening. To get that 0.01% better, we have to have a way to measure that we are improving. And this is where scientific method comes into play. So this has been used to develop pretty much anything, right? If you look at, going to space, anything from like that, figure out how radio waves work, how do we make the first computer, everything just use scientific method. It's used in almost every trial that we use to test new drugs when it comes to medicine and all these things. So it's a very, very well-known thing, very, very well documented. You can Google it. This is basically just scientific method applied to outreach. Okay, so I wanted to say that because I didn't make this up, right? Like this is not something that I just came up with. This is something that's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, and way smarter people than me invented it. I just modified it for agencies, right? So how it basically works is never do something without an objective. But this is what happens. People start email outreach and they've got no objective. They just, oh, I'll send 100 emails a day and I'm going to get clients. And I always say, okay, but what's the objective? Like, are you trying to improve your open rate on emails? Because if you are, that means you're trying to, play with your subject line. Are you trying to improve your click from meeting to landing page? Right? Because maybe you're sending them a Loom, or maybe you're sending them a booking page and then you're monitoring the click, because that would include testing the copy in the email. Or are you trying to actually improve your landing page to call, which means you're fiddling with the script that you used in the Loom that you sent them, or you're fiddling with the landing page or the free value assets or whatever it is that you're sending them as an email, as an example, right? But most people don't think through outreach like that. They just send emails and say, why am I not getting clients? Okay, so the scientific method basically works by, first, you identify what the bottleneck is. So what problem are we trying to solve? And in this example, well, we're not getting meetings, so outreach is not working, okay? Then we establish a goal. What do we want to do? We want meetings consistently, okay? So now what we do is we research and we basically develop a hypothesis. So basically, again, just to summarize scientific method before I go through this, it's set a goal. Okay, then we get research, so we figure out data, right? So we need to understand what is our open rate on emails, what is our click-through rate from email to landing page, what is our booking and closing rate from landing page to call. If we were doing cold emails, the same thing is if we were doing cold message, we need to know what's our open rate, what's our block rate. We need to understand all these metrics and put them in a spreadsheet. Now, if you don't have any of these spreadsheets and you don't have any of these numbers tracked, then yes, you need to just do outreach and just track these numbers, because you need some data before this method will start working for you, okay? So he obviously did this, and here's the numbers that he came up with, right? So he had an open rate of about 60%, reply rate 4%, booking rate 1%, okay? So he sends 100 emails, he gets one call, right? That's his numbers. Okay, so that's his KPIs. Now he does some research, right? And basically what he says here is if this, then that. So what this basically is you want to form a statement and then you want to test that statement. So this whole scientific method is form a statement, test it, and then if you don't hit your goal, then you need to figure out why. You need to make a change and then go through the process again. So it's this consistent feedback loop of consistently going through the process, trying to achieve a goal. And if we don't achieve it, we identify why, we make a change, and we run the test again. And we run the test under the same conditions until eventually we achieve success. And then you move to the next one. That way, I said, you can never fail at outreach. It's just a case of how quickly can you go through those tests to figure out what works and what doesn't, okay? So he's got an action here. If I send 100 emails a day, then the result will be I will get 2 to 3 meetings per week, okay? So he is trying to go from a 1% booking rate to about a 2 or 3%, because obviously if he sends 100, this would be, one meeting. He wants, 2 to 3. So he's trying to improve this percentage over here, the booking rate stat. Okay, so in order to do that, what can we test, right? That's the other thing, is identifying what you can play with. Well, you can play with your open rate, which would be, subject lines, things like that. You can play with your reply rate, which would be the copy in the email, and then booking rate, which would be, everything that you say in the Loom or the landing page or whatever you send them, okay? So here is the method. What does he want to do? Well, he wants to send 100 emails a day, okay, which would be 500, 700 emails per week. And then what was the problem? The problem was booking rate. So go back to step 3 and compare this, right? And then problem dissecting, what were the variables that could affect the problem? So obviously he did this and he didn't achieve his goal. So then his goal was, what problems could have resulted in him not achieving this goal? And in that example was, well, the body of the email, the actual copy in the email could have been bad. He could have provided no clear CTA in his email, and he could have just given the wrong CTA, right? One little tip I can tell you with outreach is try to avoid using the word call in your cold emails, cold message, cold calls. Always try and use the word connect. It just has way higher click-through rates and booking rates. But anyways, and then what you do is you do a split test. So, in this example, he is split testing book now, or do you want to learn more as a CTA? So obviously in your email, you've got your CTA, which is usually the text that's at the end of the email, which is like, okay, if you enjoyed this or whatever, next steps is book a call, and do you want to learn more, right? And if I'm losing you, don't worry. I'm going to re-explain this. I just want to go through each step by step, and then I'll explain it all and it will come full picture for you. Okay, so he has developed a little test here. Now he's going to actually launch it, and this is his target, as we said. This is his volume. This is his method, and this is how long he is going to do the test. And then after he's done this, he's basically going to analyze the test. Was the goal achieved? If yes, move to the next bottleneck. If no, he's going to do another test. And then on the other side, we have documentation. Okay, so that's the spreadsheet. Now let me just wrap all of this up in a little bow and make it clear to you. Again, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to fix this problem. Okay, and in order to fix this problem, we need to achieve this goal. So we use the principle of inversion, identify the problem. The opposite of the problem should be the goal, and vice versa, right? Then what we do is we make sure that we have data to work with so that we can see if we're progressing or regressing. Because like, let's say we make a change here and our open rates go from 60% to 2%, then we regressed, we got worse, right? So we need to first have a bit of a starting point. If you don't have any of this data, then yeah, just do outreach to get some data. Even if it's bad data, it doesn't matter as long as you can just move forward, because you have to have a measuring stick. What the main thing I'm trying to tell you with this video is if you're not measuring, you're failing, because how do you know if you're getting better or worse? You don't know. You're just doing stuff, right? Then what you do is you come up with a ideal statement or a hypothesis. If I do this, then I should achieve this, okay? Then you figure out, okay, in order to achieve that goal, what can I play with? What variables are in my control in my outreach that I can change, right? Here's the variables. Then what you do is you choose one of those variables and you isolate which one you want to fix. So obviously, I think his open rate's pretty good. I think his reply rate is pretty good. I think his booking rate can be improved. So we decided that's the metric he needs to play with. Okay, then we look at that metric and we say, well, what affects that metric? Here are the 3 things that affect it. What do? We choose one of them. And again, the key with scientific method is to choose one variable at a time. You cannot test 10 things because then you don't know what's working. So you choose one of the problems. In this example, he chose CTA. That's the thing that he wanted to fix. And then what you do with a scientific method is you always have an A and a B version. So it's basically A/B testing or split testing. So we have decided through all of this, in order to improve our booking rate, we need to play with the CTA, because clearly what's happening is people are opening our emails. So we don't need to, play with subject line. People are replying. So that's not really the problem. They're just not booking. So the only thing that could be preventing them from booking is, of course, our CTA, our call to action to actually book a call. So we need to play with that. And he came up with 2 tests, right? He wanted to say book now, or he wanted to say, do you want to learn more, right? That's just 2 variations of this specific test. Then what you do is you decide on a target. So in order to deem this test successful, you need a target, which we decided was 2 to 3 meetings. Then what you do is you have to set up a test. So what most people do is they're just doing outreach, right? They're not doing anything. Whereas I'm telling you, when he did outreach here, he had a very clear goal. He wants 2 to 3 meetings, and he wants those 2 to 3 meetings over a 10-day time period. And the way he's going to get that is by sending 100 emails a day. 50 of those emails, because again, it's an equal test here. So 50 of those emails are going to use this call to action. The other 50 are going to use this call to action, right? And we are assuming that one of these call to actions is going to be significantly better than the other one, which will increase the booking rate, and therefore he will achieve this goal, okay? Then after the 10 days have passed by, we end the test. So again, it's also very important that you have a clear end date or time frame, right? Because you can't just be testing into oblivion, which is what a lot of people do. They just do outreach, but they've got no end date, no plan, right? So we set a clear end date. And then what we do is we analyze and we say, okay, before the test, my booking rate was this. After the test, my booking rate was now this, right? And then was the goal achieved, which was the 2 to 3 meetings? If the goal was achieved, then we know, okay, all future emails must now use this new call to action because it's proven to work better, right? If not, what we do is we go back to the drawing board and we come up with another test, and we just run the test again. And you run this test over and over and over until you just eventually figure out what works, right? And that is what I was saying, is you really have to stop looking at outreach as this thing that either you make it or you fail, because that's the wrong way to approach it. Because it's, first of all, a very stationary mindset, which means that you're not really moving forward or backwards, which means you're just not growing. But secondly, it's also just not a problem solver's mindset, right? You have to attach everything or look at everything as if it's a problem so that you can improve. Okay, and then the other thing that I also mentioned, which he's added over here, is when you do this testing, it's very important that you document what you test, because you don't want to make the mistake of testing the same thing, right? So over this time period, you are going to be doing a lot of split testing, right? So now you often can just forget what you tested, and it's stupid to test the same thing. So let's say, 3 weeks go by and he wants to test call to actions again, right? For whatever reason. Obviously, he shouldn't retest what he's already retested in the past, because it's just going to yield the same answer, and that would be a huge waste of time and resources. But when you've done this enough times, you probably are going to forget what you actually did test, and you're going to forget what the data was. So just make sure that you have a log or a document that runs through what the tests were, what you were actually testing, and what the conclusion was. So for example, he ran through this test, and this was his conclusion, that learn more as a framing or copywriting piece of text outperformed the book now, okay? And so moving forward, he's always going to use learn more. He's not going to go back to book now because he already tested that. And again, if you can do this for a long enough period of time and sustain your actions, and you are just getting consistently 0.01% better over time, and you give enough time to pass, then it's inevitable that you become deserving of clients, and you will get clients, right? The only question that should be in your mind is, how quickly can I cut down the amount of tests that I need to make to achieve that success quicker, right? And that's obviously where investing in either a mentor or program or something like this comes in, or just putting in the work, right? That's the only way to cut down time is either you buy it because again, like people just don't seem to understand this properly, but when you invest in someone to learn from them, what effectively you're doing is just buying back your time, because you could probably learn the same thing just by doing it yourself, but that would cost you time, and time is more valuable than money, right? So again, you either invest in someone or you just put in the work. So if you don't have the money to invest in someone, just put in the work, but then understand that you are spending time to reclaim money, right? And if you have the money, then it's always better to do that instead of having to spend the time, right? So if that is you and you do want to invest in a program, then click the link down below. Just go check out my quick little video. It's about 10 minutes. There's no opt-in. You don't have to watch a VSL or do any of that stuff. It's literally just a 5 to 10 minute video explaining my offer, which is very, very unique, especially if you've been in this agency game for a long time and we have a guarantee. But if not, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to include a link to this sheet down below, and you can, just say file, make a copy, use it in your own agency, go get incredible results. I hope this changed the way that you think about outreach so that you never wake up any longer and think, man, outreach just doesn't work for me. This whole agency thing just doesn't work, because I hope I've been able to change your mindset and put you in a frame and set you up for success. And I'd love if, 3-6 months from now, you come back and comment on this video and say, wow, this really changed things for me. And now my outreach is working and I have 5, 6, 7 clients, because then I know you're going to join the program anyways, because it's just goodwill that I've built, right? So again, doesn't interest you, that's fine. But I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.